Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 158. You are about 30 seconds behind me. So, if I'm not terribly responsive to the chat, I do apologize. YouTube is being a little putsy right now. It I started a couple minutes late just because it didn't want to stream. So, thanks, YouTube. Everybody together, thanks, YouTube. But hey, glad you're all here keeping me company, because Lord knows Zachary isn't. He's still moving, so he'll be back in a few weeks. Uh, or maybe at least. I still cannot find a decent substitute for Google Hangouts on Air. If anyone knows any, let me know. Um, Jordan, you're bedridden and injured your foot. Well, hopefully this silly podcast can take your mind off that for an hour. Okay, so Mercenary Thug in the chat is asking me what is the most hilarious anime I've watched. I've given it all of 2 minutes of thought, and one that popped up in my head is a show called Super Gals, um, which is exactly what it sounds like. It follows a bunch of girls in high school, which describes like all the anime. But the characters are just a lot of fun, and what's her name? Ranko Tabuki, I think her name is just really. She's a character. I've not watched this show in probably like 15 years. Uh, but when you ask me about a hilarious anime, that's the first thing that popped to mind. I can think of a lot of anime that's funny, has jokes in it, like Azumanga Daioh is funny. Um, uh, uh, Nichijou. Let me double check the what the title of it is. Nichijou. What's the English translation? English title is My Ordinary Life. That is a show that is absolutely not for everyone. It's one of those polarizing shows where people like me just love it and think it's great, and everyone else is just like, I don't get it. I don't see what you see in this show. I've never found anyone in the middle ground. It's one of those shows. Um, Another show that had me laughing was a fairly recent show, I think, like in the last 5 or 6 years, called Yuru Yuri, which is really hard for me to say, which is all the more impressive that the people singing the opening theme can say that title over and over really fast. High School DxD is your favorite. Let me Google that real quick. See if I recognize it. Do do do. Boy, there's a lot of porn based on this anime, and probably all the rest of them. I don't recognize it though. Hmm. Uh, I do. Agent Ica, I think, is just at least the first one is just really funny. It's one of those. It's a show that does fan service as a joke, and I thought it was pretty funny. So let's see. I have to do. Yeah, there's usually a delay on this, but it's usually not like 30 seconds. Um, High School DxD leans heavy on the etchy stuff. It looks like it from the screens I pulled up, but that's okay. That can be funny too. Uh, so there's some anime that I've seen that I find funny. Let's see, what do I want to talk about? So let me pull up my topic list here. And I'm really failing at my tabs here. Okay, first topic. Let us talk about Sonic the movie. So we have all, whether you're a fan of Sonic or not, I personally, it's a well-designed character. He's an iconic character. I've never really enjoyed the games, but they said they were making a movie. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Could be fun. And then we started getting rumors of what Sonic might look like. Little sales art things and silhouettes, and then just his legs, and everyone went, "Oh no, oh no." And then we saw what Sonic looks like, and we said, "Oh no, that's why would you do that?" Um, and the internet collectively asked, "Why would you do that?" In a polite and respectful way, as the internet often does. And the showrunners said, Paramount, I think, and the showrunners said, we are going to redo, we're going to push back the release date a couple of months. We're going to redo Sonic so that he looks better because we love you." And the internet collectively said, "We shall see." So, a few weeks ago, Jim Carrey weighed in on, I say that like it's surprising, but he's in the movie. So Jim Carrey weighed in and he said, "I don't know quite how I feel about the audience being in on the creation of it," talking about the movie and changing Sonic, while it's happening. We'll have to see what that entails. Sometimes you find that the collective consciousness decides it wants something, and then when it gets it, it goes, "Okay, I don't want that." You become a Frankenstein's monster at some point, right? I don't really concern myself with things once I did my thing, but I'm not super concerned about it. It's going to happen how it happens. It's either going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Adi Shankar, whose name I'm probably butchering, but he's the dude who's done, he did the Netflix Castlevania. He's done a few, he did a Punisher short, an unofficial Punisher short. He weighed in. He actually wrote a short open letter to Jim Carrey, which said, "Dear Jim, the audience isn't in on the creation of the film you acted in. Sonic the Hedgehog was already created decades ago. This film you lended your talents to adapted him incorrectly. It's this perspective that Hollywood is entitled to dismantle iconography as it sees fit and reassemble it in ways that often bear little resemblance to the source that has led to the friction between gamers and the film industry. Best, Adi, Mr. Shankar." So, my thoughts. My thoughts kind of fall somewhere in the middle between Jim Carrey and Adi Shankar. And that is, I think everyone has the right, as long as they do it, politely and respectfully, and by that I mean without harassing or abusing people, to let their opinion on something be known, like a studio's creative choices when it comes to a film they're making. I agree in part with Jim Carrey in that as a creator, a lot of times you probably don't want to listen to the internet at large because we, the internet at large, often don't know what the hell we're talking about. Because if we did, we'd be making the movies, right? And oftentimes we don't know what we want until we have it, right? Which is not a critique specifically on the Sonic design that we all know and loathe. It's a generalization. I think audience feedback can be important, it can be valuable, and it can be ignored, and a lot of times rightfully so. So, I think sometimes companies can lean too heavily on a reaction. For example, I have seen literally 0 seconds of any episode of Game of Thrones. I don't have HBO, so I've never seen it. But I've heard people talk about it because they keep talking about it. Apparently, season 8 is not very good. So I heard someone complaining about Game of Thrones recently. And they said that something in the show was changed because the internet guessed what was going to happen. They're like, "Oh, Sam is gonna end up with Susan. Ha ha! We are smart internet sleuths. And the showrunners went, oh crap, that was supposed to be a surprise. Well, Sam's going to end up with the White Walker. I don't know what that is, but Sam's gonna end up with the White Walker, and no one will see that coming. And they did that, and no one saw it coming because it didn't make any damn sense in the context of all the story leading up to it. So here was an example, again, allegedly, I've not seen the show, of audience feedback kind of making a show worse. Not really the audience's fault, though. It's the showrunner's fault for second guessing themselves. And so there's no right answer here, I think. But I don't think we should always listen to the audience, and I don't think we should always plug our ears and go, nye, nye, nye. As far as Adi Shankar's response, he says, the film you lended your talents to adapted him incorrectly. Well, that's subjective. Actually, in this case, I'd go so far as to say it's objectively incorrect adaptation, but whatever. He says it's this he says he bemoans this idea that Hollywood is entitled to dismantle iconography as it sees fit and reassemble in ways that often bear little resemblance to the source. Here's the thing. Hollywood totally does have that entitlement, that right. It can, and it does, dismantle iconography as it sees fit and reassemble it in ways that bear little resemblance to the source. Now, that may not always be a good idea. In fact, most often it's probably not, because at that point, well, why are you adapting this and not making your own thing if you're going to stray so far away from the IP? Talking about Sonic specifically, the movie, to me, based solely on the one trailer we have, looks terrible. So I'm not particularly bothered by a terrible-looking Sonic in a terrible-looking Sonic movie. In fact, in some respects, I kind of prefer it that way. I think I would, especially if I were like a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. I'd say, man, if you're just going to make a bad movie, I don't mind you having a Sonic in name only, kind of like the '98 Godzilla. Well, it's bad. It's not as bad as people say, but it's bad. But a lot of people are like, well, that's not Godzilla, so whatever. You know, that was another example of just a, what are you doing? It's just not Godzilla. It's just a big iguana. And kind of the same thing here. It's like, well, that's not what Sonic looks like. This is actually a lot closer to the original Sonic than that Godzilla was to Godzilla, but yeah. The movie looks bad, and assuming that it's as bad as it looks, the perfect-looking Sonic, not going to help. Probably just going to make it worse. Hard to say, but I thought it was an interesting set of perspectives. Let me see what the chat is saying. Jordan says, the way I view it, it's an adaptation, not a direct recreation. I'll admit it doesn't look good, but it's their version of Sonic. I hope they have an original Sonic cut when it's on Blu-ray. I agree. I probably won't see it or buy it, but if I did, I would really hope that a version of the movie with the original Sonic and whatever they change it to, they had both versions of the movie, you know, pre-redesign and redesign, because that would be cool. It would be neat to compare and contrast. I agree. Chaos says even Sega wasn't pleased with Sonic's look. Atritsu says they've got money to buy the license. They can do that. However, keeping the license when they do a bad job gets harder. Kind of depends on the fine print of the purchase in the first place. A lot of times these licenses can be for a certain amount of time. Like Fox made a lot of bad X-Men and just superhero movies. It's like, I mean, how many bad Fantastic Four movies did they make? 3? And it's like, someone take their toys away. They can't play properly with them. And that particular thing was you can have it as you paid for it, and you can keep it as long as you make movies, even if they suck. Seems to be a lot of the stipulations for people who own IPs. Um, but if they're not making any money on it, if they're making crappy movies that are also not making money, then they may try to leverage that to the original IP owner, who might want to buy it back and say, hey, if you give us lots of money, we'll sell it back to you, or we'll just make a really crappy movie and keep the license. So, yeah. Let's see. Jordan says, I'm also a film purist, and even if the look wasn't good, I'd really like to see both versions made available to the public. Yeah, I agree. Did I watch the Japanese teaser for the Monster Hunter movies? Asks Jordan. I did not, because so far as I know, there hasn't been an official release of it. I'm aware of someone, like, filmed it on their cell phone in a theater, and I didn't watch it. I've seen some footage of what's his face from the raid just kind of wandering around the desert, and I think Mia Jovovich is, or however her name is pronounced, is there too. But I haven't seen anything of it yet. It's one I'm very curious about. I would love to have a great Monster Hunter movie. I don't believe in a million years that they'll make one, but I could be wrong. Even if it's a bad movie, if Devil Joe shows up and stomps someone flat, I'm gonna be pretty happy, as long as they don't completely botch it. It's like the Resident Evil movies. I would assume I've only seen the first one and part of the second. Um, the first Resident Evil, at least, is not what I wanted in a Resident Evil movie, but it was kind of fun. It had fun moments. Um, Chaos says Fox is the perfect example of how to do a license properly incorrectly. I hear Venom is funny and enjoyable in the wrong ways. Um, it wasn't X-Men, it was the Fox version of X-Men. There you go. And you think the only thing that Disney is going to keep from Fox is maybe Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, if he'll still do it, and Deadpool. Although it'd be interesting to see if I know Disney has in some cases said, "Oh yeah, R-rated Deadpool, yeah, absolutely." We'll see. Although if they did a thing where Deadpool showed up and started dropping f-bombs and it was just bleeped, and he noticed the bleeps and censor mosaics covering nudity, he's like, what the beep is that? He's like, oh my god, this movie's PG-13. I can't say beep. I can't say beep. That could be funny. That's one way to do it. Don't know if they will do that. Don't know if that would work, but it's a possibility. We'll see. Venom was... Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Venom was Sony. Spider-Man stuff is Sony. You're right. My bad. So, let's see, what other topics do I want to talk about? So, Ubisoft, for the last year or so, someone from Ubisoft has described games like Tom Clancy's The Division and Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Did I mention these are Tom Clancy games? And Watch Dogs Legion as not having any semblance of political perspective. Them doing there's no politics in our game about terrorists taking over the White House and a private military has to no politics there at all. What politics? And I've always found that annoying because it's completely untrue. However, listening to... I've never had, of course, the chance to actually talk to any of these people. But having listened to them say this dumb stuff over and over, I think what they mean, or what they're intending to convey rather than what they're saying. I think what they mean to say is we are making games and we are not worried about we're not putting a lot of thought into what the story and the mechanics of the game are actually saying. We're just trying to make something that sells well, and we don't really want to talk about any type of political perspective because that might risk alienating part of the people who will a portion of the people who will give us money for the stuff we're making. And that I get. That's fine. That's possibly even the correct strategy for these particular games. I just honestly wish that Ubisoft and other developers would acknowledge that there are political perspectives, there are ways to read the politics of their game, but they're just not going to comment on it. They're not going to discuss it. It's for the audience to consume and decide. You know, they can say, look, this is not something we want to discuss. Just leave it there. But they really come off as really cowardly and disingenuous by saying, "Oh no, there's no politics in a game about a dystopian fascist regime taking over an entire country and a bunch of rebels having to band together to fight the police state. There's no politics there. That's horse poop. So just stop it." Now, to Ubisoft's credit, or at least the person who was interviewed by Kotaku earlier this week, they seem to be walking back that line a little bit. You know, recognizing that saying that our game has no politics in it, politics don't belong in games, is as dumb as saying that video games are not art. That's wrong. Video games are art. I think a lot of the problem is similar to the video games are or are not art. I think a lot of people get hung up on the word art and the word politics. Both of them are very simple, very broad nouns that describe a very large, wide swath of stuff. Politics and art both are not judgments of quality, right? You can have good art and bad art. You can have good politics and bad politics. You can have overt politics and benign politics. But almost every game you think of, all of them are art, whether good or bad, and almost all of them have some type of political perspective. Again, I'm not using politics in the very narrowly defined current American presidential administration, which I think is where a lot of people's minds understandably go when you say politics. And if that's the word, and if that's the way they're using the word, I can understand them saying, "Oh, no politics," when what they mean is like, we're not talking about the current American presidential administration. Fine, but politics isn't just that. The way people in a society relate to each other is politics. So if you have a game and there are people in it and they interact with each other, there's going to be some type of political bent or perspective or commentary, whether you intend it or not. You know, if you have people and you have player, and they interact somehow, whether they talk to each other, or shoot at each other, or chase each other in circles, or have a lot of sex. That's politics. It's just what the word means. So I get why a lot of publishers would be squeamish of the word politics. I get it. But I also tend to be kind of stubborn when it comes to language. You know, I'm like, but that's not what that means. So a lot of times when I discuss topics or subjects that many people can get heated over, I very rarely use labels like politics or art, really broad terms, or even broad terms like politics and art. I tend to stay away from, and I tend to stay away from narrow things like liberal and conservative. You know, because most people don't know what the hell that means. They may have an idea, they may mean a specific thing when they use these descriptive terms, but usually when someone asks, or when someone talks about a specific subject, I ask them specifically what they're referring to rather than the blanket socialism. It's like, number one, you probably don't know what that word means. So let's just say, okay, don't use the word socialism. Tell me exactly what you're talking about, specifically what you're talking about, and then we can have a conversation, and I can block you on Twitter when I learn you're a dork. So anyway, it was nice to read that article because I think Ubisoft is backpedaling, but backpedaling in the proper direction. If your game has Tom Clancy above the title, it's inherently political, you goofballs. Oi. All right, let's see what the chat's been doing. Any thoughts on Walmart taking down? Walmart taking down violent game ads. Yeah, sure. I'll talk about that. Ubisoft can't get out of its own way. Desert Rain got moderated, so let me show their thing. No arguments there, Andrew. Say one thing wrong or do one thing wrong. Be prepared for the crap to hit the fan. Yeah, yeah. We internet dwellers, especially we gamers, we're not the only group, of course, but we can get butthurt about the slightest thing. And some of that is just, unfortunately, the culture we're in right now, which is exacerbated by other things. But part of it is also a history, right? We gamers broadly can be kind of protective of our hobby because, and again, we're not the only ones, because it has been so historically persecuted's the wrong word, maligned, unfairly maligned. Much like rock and roll, Dungeons and Dragons, rap music. We're actually back to video games now, which is something that Jordan talked about. Let me look through the rest of the chat here. It would be awesome to have a video game like House of Cards. Politics can play very well. Any media just have the compelling risk to take. There actually are a few games that are explicitly political in the sense of almost a simulation on how American governance works. There's one that comes out every 4 years, and political machine or something. It's something. It's a simulation game that almost allows you to fantasy football your way through a presidential election. It's actually kind of neat. We covered it on game politics back in the day. Jordan says context is a dead language and it's scary. That's true. What I find particularly interesting is the same interesting and on the same token really depressing and sad is a lot of people who will clamor about how important context is are oftentimes some of the same people who will make an art who will take you out of context in order to pwn you in a tweet or whatever, which is disingenuous and bad faith, but and sadly something we expect to see a lot of. But I do my best to be better than that, and I'm sure you do as well. Let's see. So Walmart, yeah. So as I'm sure everyone's aware, at least everyone in America and everyone who's not in America could probably guess, we had several shootings a week ago. We have mass shootings nearly every day here. Um, we had one at a Walmart in El Paso 2 weeks ago, I think. And the response to it is by our leaders is exactly what you would expect. Nothing. So, well, nothing that's going to do anything. So, Walmart and I don't have anything in front of me, so I'm going completely off memory. So I apologize if I get a detail here wrong. But Walmart said that we're going to pull any advertisements for violent video games, but also, from what I understand, I think what they mean is in-store adverts, pop-up displays, and stuff. So any pop-up display for a video game with a dude holding a gun is going to be taken down. And in and of itself, that's fine. Um, I imagine that. I mean, for example, there was a movie, I forget what it's called. There's a scene in the movie where a bunch of mobsters, bad guys, come into a movie theater and shoot the crap out of the audience. A couple of weeks before the film came out, some person walked into a theater and shot the crap out of the audience. So the people who made the movie pulled the advertisements and delayed the release by like half a year. That's fine. And the same thing with Walmart. Ostensibly, it would be fine. It's like, we just had someone shoot 19 some odd people in our Walmart. Maybe people aren't going to be comfortable in the immediate aftermath of that as seeing a poster board with a dude with a shooty shoot gun. That's understandable. That's even reasonable and thoughtful, compassionate. A lot of people would argue, and I would do the same, perhaps, that they're still selling guns, though. Like, I imagine anyone who would feel uncomfortable by a point of purchase display of army dude with big gun probably going to at least as equally, if not more so, kind of be squicked out by the gun display rack. I don't know what kind of guns that Walmart sells. I don't know if they sell AR-15s or whatever. But the problem is that Walmart's response did not appear to be in response to the shooting. It appeared to be in response to the disingenuous histrionics of our elected officials once again blaming video games and other unrelated nonsense. So our politicians, including our president, was like, oh, the video games, these horrible, violent video games. That appears to be what Walmart reacted to. Not the event itself. It does appear, don't know for certain, but it does appear that had our politicians not broadly, not all of them, of course, but scapegoated video games, again, Walmart probably would not have taken the same action. So I think that's where people run into the problem, because it feels disingenuous, right? I think if the politicians hadn't wrongly scapegoated video games again, and Walmart said, you know what, we're going to take basically any reference to guns, the pop-up displays and stuff, we're going to take those down for a couple of weeks because no one wants to see that. I think we'd all be like, yeah, it's fine. I had a video I was going to do years ago, which was going to be a please be quiet in the theater, other people are trying to watch the movie type of video, right? And the idea was me sitting in the theater happily munching popcorn, and the camera pans over, and you see someone who looks like they're asleep, and then the next person slumped over, and then you start realizing, oh, all these people are dead. And one has like a cell phone jammed in their eye socket and stuff. And I actually I was working on this with I was starting to contact theater managers to see if I could get a theater I could shoot in. I have a buddy who works up north in LA who actually does videos. I was going to try and do a collaboration with him because we've always wanted to work together and never got a chance. So I was writing this violent, basically shut the heck up in a theater because you never know who you're in there with, and they might jam that cell phone in your eye socket. While I was in very early pre-production on this concept for a video, the Aurora Theater shooting happened. Which, if you're not familiar, that was a dude who went into a theater and shot a bunch of people, killed several of them. And I ended up not doing that video. I just canceled it. No one asked me to. I personally didn't want to do it anymore and didn't feel anyone really wanted to see that video at that point. I probably could have done something like that sometime later, but you know. So being cognizant of the environment in which you exist is not a bad thing. Being sympathetic to those around you is not a bad thing. It's not weakness, it's not censorship, it's being a decent human being. There have been plenty of I have actually a very dark, sick sense of humor. Which you can probably see in some of my videos, but there have been many video ideas that I've looked at and got, I think that's funny, but I think there's a bunch of people who would be genuinely disturbed by that, so I don't do it. I do other things. So there's my long talk about Walmart. Let's see what the chat's doing. Desert Rain says, but of course that's how they always roll when they don't want to take responsibility for their inflammatory rhetoric. True. I mean, I in some ways understand why. I mean, it's really difficult to admit fault because we're all to some extent prideful, right? It's hard admitting you're wrong, and I imagine it would be especially hard to admit to yourself that the things you've been saying contribute to an environment where things like this happen. That's a gut punch. So it doesn't surprise me that such people would twist themselves into pretzels in order to escape any semblance of blame or complicity or avoid any self-reflection. Doesn't make it right, doesn't mean I'm okay with any of these people, but yeah. Jordan says, when people talk about restrictions on guns, my go-to is, you do know knives have been around way longer, and so has been mass murder. Well, that's true, but you can kill a lot more people with guns than you can with a knife. I mean, I'd much rather, I'd take my chances with a horrible, hateful bigot running into a Walmart with a knife than with a gun with a magazine that holds 100 rounds. My survival odds are a lot better. But, in America at least, with the current people we have elected, nothing is going to get done. Nothing is going to happen. So nothing's going to change. More of us will die. That's not fun. I'm sorry that I'm bringing everybody down. Let's see. Desert Rain, to which I say true, but knife wielders can be stopped a lot quicker, and knives don't fire 20 to 50 rounds of ammunition per second. Sure. Jordan says, I go to the theater 3 times a week for a few hours out of the day. If I get killed, I get killed. As much as I don't want to die, I'm just going to enjoy my time and hope for the best. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to do it that way. I'll admit, maybe I'm just kind of a fatalistic dork, but like I'm actually going out to sushi tonight, going to take a friend out for sushi breakfast. Birthday sushi, wrong B word. Birthday sushi, which is why the podcast is an hour early today. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. I have to admit that I often think about dying, not in a suicidal way, just eventually dying, because it's scary, man. Life just ends, and then you don't get to experience any more stuff. But you're not around to be bummed out about it. It's existentially terrifying. Um, Maybe that's why I'm an insomniac. But I actually do occasionally think, whenever I get in a car, it's like I could get in an accident and die. A building could fall over on me. Um, I could go to Trader Joe's and I could get shot to death. These are things that it's terrible and I wish I didn't, but these are things I think about. And your options are, well, stay home and order your groceries off of Amazon or whatever, or just roll the dice. You know, odds are I'll be fine, but odds are the 40 to 50 people who have been shot to death in public places in the last 2 weeks here in America, odds are they would have been fine too. But they went outside and some terrible human being murdered them. But yeah, I agree generally, Jordan. That's kind of my perspective. I'm not going to stay home tonight. I am going to go out. I'm going to drive all the way up to Rancho Bernardo, which is about 25-minute drive. I'm going to risk a car accident on the way there and back. Gonna risk death by fugu. Uh, gonna risk someone walking into the restaurant blowing us all away. So I kind of agree with the there's there's nothing you as an individual can do about it at this moment in time. So perhaps it's best to just do what we can to enjoy our life while we have it. I mean, there are things we can individually do, like vote. And collectively, we can vote and talk to our elected representatives and tell them what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. We can run for office ourselves. We can donate to charities. We can work for various good deed type of places, shelters and rescues and things like that. Volunteer work is what I was trying to get at. There are a lot of things that we can individually and collectively do to attempt to make the world a better place. It's just really frustrating that there's a bunch of people that is stubbornly standing in the way. You know, it's like clean air and water. Who would want that? Every living thing on the planet? Yeah. So, let's see. When your time comes, your time comes. I do agree, carpe diem. Yeah, and sucks, but yeah. Let's see. Have fun and enjoy the sushi. If they got ramen there, get a big bowl of it. If snoosu came in the form of food, tonkatsu ramen is it. I the first time someone said I was applying for a job at IGN, and what's her name? Stephanie Lee, I think her name was. Got the job. I did not. So I think I challenged her to a uh, water noodle death match or something, just for fun. Because I actually ended up, I think I ended up editing some of her work for some reason. It was interesting because she has a very similar writing style to me. And I was joking to her about that, and she responded something like "death by snoo snoo" or something like that, and I had no idea what that meant. And I looked it up, and I went, "Is she propositioning me, or is she just really weird?" We're both really weird. So, anyway, let's try to talk about something a bit more less depressing. Um, hey, I don't often talk about the books I read. So I was house sitting for a workmate of mine last weekend, taking care of her cats, and I happened to notice on her bookshelf a copy of Jaws 2. Now, I've read the original by Peter Benchley, and I've seen the movie. Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all, top 5 favorite films of all time. And I actually think Jaws 2, the movie, is a really good sequel. It's not a great movie, but it's very watchable, and it is, like, a lot better than you would expect the follow-up to Jaws to be. So the the Jaws 2 on her shelf was a novelization of the Jaws 2 screenplay. And I always find novelizations of screenplays very interesting, because a lot of times they're a mixture of stuff that was cut out of the script and stuff that the writer filled in. Like, probably one of my favorite novelizations was the novelization of Mortal Kombat, the '95 movie. It was really interesting looking at that guy, the author, could have been a girl, I don't remember who wrote it, filling in some of the, like, Art Lean's backstory and some of the Johnny Cage and Goro fight. And I'm like, oh man, that would have been great in the movie. I saw some behind the scenes stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, that was originally in the movie. Why did they cut that out? Did the effects not work? Um, Anyway, Jaws 2, I found it a really interesting. I'm only halfway through it, but I'm finding it a very interesting read because the author gives the shark a motivation, which I wasn't expecting. It's a really good motivation. I mean, well, it's hungry, right? But I think in the original Jaws, there's an offhanded remark of, we fish the water clean, the shark has nothing else to eat. If we stay out of the water, it'll just move on. Uh, in the first 20 pages of the book, it describes the shark swimming around and the ocean clearing out for a mile in front of it. Like, when the shark's coming, every piece of bit of sea life a mile out just goes, oh, shark coming, let's get out of here, and then fills in behind her. Well, normally she's really fast so she can grab stuff. But the shark is pregnant, very pregnant, which is two things. One, she's eating for several now because she's got, I think, 8 baby sharks swimming around in her uteri. So she's eating for herself and 8 babies. So she's really, really hungry. But she's also really, really pregnant, so she's slow. So she's having trouble catching all the fish, because she's slow and she's hungry, and the fish are like, whoop, my fish sense is telling me shark is coming, run, and she's slow, so she can't catch them. Humans don't have that fishy sense, except Aquaman. But most humans are, one, not very fast, and two, don't have the fish sense, no echolocation, no electrical field sensory organs, no real good vision in the water, no ability to determine the shifts in current. We are completely oblivious until the shark bites us in the butt. And we're slow. So she can catch us. And that's why she's hanging around Amityville eating people. I was like, that's actually a really good and plausible motivation for the shark to stick around and eat people. I am impressed. Unfortunately, the book is not great. I don't think this writer is that... I hate being mean, but it's just not very well written. None of the characters, Brody, it's mainly Brody. He's almost not a character, but what character is there isn't particularly likable. Ellen's a bit of a cipher, Ellen Brody. Mike and Sean, the kids, are there a bit, but they don't have much. They're more archetypes and characters. Same thing with Larry Vaughn, the mayor, and it's just not a very entertaining read. It also, but what I do find interesting is how different it is from the movie. Because in the movie, it's a bunch of divers putzing around the wreck of the Orca, find the shark, take a picture of it. Brody sees the picture and goes, oh my god, a shark! And everyone's like, what is that, Bubbles, a school of fish? No, it's a shark, there's the eyeball. And he's like, there's a new shark. And I'm like, oh, bro, crazy Brody. He's like, no, we got to cancel the kids who are going out on the boat race this week because they'll be eaten. And no one listens to them. And the kids go out in the boats and they get eaten. It's great. It's actually really good. I like Jaws 2. In the book, that's kind of a background element. There is the kids going out on the boat thing, but most of it has been this weird thing where there's this mafioso moving into town to build a casino, and this other guy that shot a baby seal on the beach, and he's writing him a ticket, and it's like, what? um, it's kind of going all over the place, and it's weird. But I will give the author credit in a second respect. One, for the shark motivation, and two, there are several moments in the book where the point of view switches to an animal, either the shark or the baby seal's mom, or a dolphin used by the military to find stuff in the water that they want to find. That stuff from the perspective of the mama seal looking for her pup and the dolphin who's trying to find the humans thing that they're trying to find is some tracker device and trying to run away from a shark. Those are really tense and really well written. I like those parts. The rest of it, not so much. Another thing that I find interesting is something that I didn't really, I haven't thought of until now, but until just recently. Not this very moment, but I was considering Jaws 2. I have a book, well, I borrowed it, but it's called Jaws 2. Something that's very numbered sequels, something that's very common in movies, but something I honestly can't think of any book series that do numbered sequels. Manga does numbered volumes, but what I mean is the Hitchhiker's quadrilogy. There's like 5 of them, right? The sequel to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was not called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy 2. It's called Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The second Harry Potter book was not called Harry Potter 2. It was called Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The second Well of Souls book was not called Midnight at the Well of Souls 2. It was called Exiles at the Well of Souls, something. I'm sure there are books that do the numbered sequel thing, but I can't think of any other than movie novelizations like Jaws 2. Let me know in the chat if you can think of any novels that do numbered sequels. I mean, the closest I can think is who writes the Edward X. Delaney books. Lawrence something. First Deadly Sin. I think the sequel's Second Deadly Sin, and it goes from there. So I know of some series, the Alphabet Murder books. A is for Apple, B is for whatever. Sue, what is her name? Something. So there are books that do kind of do a cute sequential thing, but I can't think of any series that's like novel 2, the noveling, you know. Not important, just an observation. Jordan, also the Jaws NES game. I beat Jaws for the NES. You know what the hardest part of beating Jaws for the NES is? Figuring out what the hell you're supposed to do in that game, how you're supposed to play it. Man, without an instruction booklet, which my buddy Austin, when I was 8 years old or whatever, did not have, it took and there was no internet. It took us a long time. Days, months. I mean, we didn't play it all the time, but occasionally we'd pull it back out. Eventually we beat it. It was hard because we couldn't figure out how the hell you're supposed to play it. Am I someone who has a soft spot for felines? Yes. Yes, I love cats. In fact, up north in LA is a kitten rescue, which is called kitten rescue, and they have a live stream of the nursery, and they have a couple cats with like cerebral hyperplasia, basically um, cerebral palsy, essentially. And I watch that stream at work all day because it's nice to just anytime I get frustrated at my job, which is fairly frequently because it's a stressful job, I can just go, "Aw, kitties," and then I feel better. It's great. Um, Finished reading the 1986 Aliens novelization. Nearly all of the cursing was taken out, which felt weird. You know what book makes the movie so much better? Abyss. If you saw Abyss, it's a watchable movie. It's an entertaining movie, but it's kind of a what movie. You watch it and you're almost not sure what to make of it. Read the book. It makes all the difference. I read the book and went, "Oh my god, this is great," and then watched the movie again. I'm like, I get what everyone's talking about. I understand what's happening. That was one of those. The book really improved the movie type of things. Jaws Unleashed on the PS2. No, I didn't. I remember it though. I'm kind of interested in that new shark game, Man Eater. Is that what it's called? It's been at like the E3 PC show a couple of years running now. Basically, you play a shark that you can upgrade and you run around eating people, or swim around eating people. Looks great. Looks a little janky, but in a fun way, kind of like the goat game. Let's see. The worst by far is the Jaws Universal Parks game. Oh, do you mean that? Oh God, was that on the GameCube? It was probably on the PS2 also, but it was like Universal Studios the game, and it had a bunch of mini games based on the rides, Jaws and Back to the Future, and oh, that's legendarily terrible. Yes, I didn't play it, but I've seen people make fun of it, um, and it looks like it's almost Superman 64 levels of what were they even thinking. Um, Desert has 3 cats. Wouldn't trade them for the world, and want to get an Oriental short hair. Yeah, I'm not allowed to have pets here, which is unfortunate. I like cats. Um, but apparently my baby cat sitting prowess has been getting around because Cheryl at work is like, "Hey, heard you've been cat sitting for April." I said, "Yeah." And she says, "I'm going to be out of town on Thanksgiving. Think you could feed my cat?" I'm like, "Sure." So it's it's nice to be needed. Let's see, what else do I have on the list here? I still want Jaws 19. Yeah. Um, I forget who did it, but someone made a video where they speculated on what Jaws 5 through 18 were. It was pretty funny. Um, I'm currently playing a game called Zero Time Dilemma, um, which is the 9 hours, 9 doors, 9 peoples. Was the first one, and then Zero Escape, I think, was the other one. Or no, I'm sorry, Virtue's Last Reward. That's what it's called. Played those on the handheld, and even though I don't typically care for handheld, I really like them. They're basically story heavy escape the room games. I think I started playing this because I did an escape room last week and just was in the mood for an escape room. So, playing it on the PS4. And it's obvious this was originally built for a handheld because there's like in Professor Layton, there's the memo where you draw on the touch screen to take notes. It has this. It's completely useless with the controller. Maybe the move works, but I don't have it. But it's fine. But it's the kind of game where it's literally an hour and a half before there's any gameplay, because it's all cutscene and story. And I made a boo-boo last night where I accidentally quit to the main menu an hour into the game without saving. No autosave. Oops. And I was so impressed with this game because look everyone, There's a manual. It's got a game manual. Isn't that great? It's got a game manual. And it also didn't install and didn't require any updates. I just put the game in the console and started playing. It was great. Um, and luckily, though, it's not one that you have to sit there and hit A at the end of each sentence. It's essentially just a long cutscene. So basically, I started the game over and went and made dinner while I let it, get up to where I left off. And now I'm religiously manually saving the game. It's a fun game. I'm liking it. It has an interesting gimmick where in the first games you would start and then you would have a decision. You go through door 1, 2, or 3, and you'd go through door 1, and whatever that path led you to, that's what it led you to. Then you'd die or something, and you had to restart, and well, let's try door 2 this time. In this one, the premise is there's 9 people, they're split up into 3 groups of 3. They're all isolated in their own sets of rooms, and every 90 minutes they wake up to do an escape room, and at the end, as long as they don't die, they're put back to sleep and their memories are erased. So every time they wake up, they have no idea who lived, who died, what's going on with the other teams, what they did previously. And how that's represented in the game, at least so far, is after the first hour and a half anyway, the game just starts you kind of in the middle somewhere. Like, you first go to sleep at like 1:30 in the afternoon, and it says, where do you want to start? So you pick one at random, and it was 6:30 in the afternoon. And it's like, have we been, chronologically, are there other rooms? There probably are. I haven't played them yet. But from the perspective of these characters, they wouldn't remember them, so the character and I are on the same page here. Of course, the more I play the game, the less that's going to happen, but it's an interesting way to structure the game. I'm liking that. That's pretty cool. Have I ever had to fight a glitchy game to play it? Yes, I've played many of the Lego games. Who is it? Traveler's Tales. The Lego games. God, those are buggy. Yeah, they're just really relaxing and fun though. I haven't played them in years because they started doing all the DLC season pass crap. So I was like, you know what? I'm done here. One more thing before I go is I was thinking about RPGs. Your stereotypical RPGs. Chosen one has to fight the evil and talk to townspeople and get quests and go into dungeons and beat slimes and loot treasures and stuff like that. And I and everyone else, this is not a new thing to note, but we're all aware of the artifice of, well, video games in general, but RPGs specifically. It's weird that when you go into a dungeon that ostensibly no one's been in for centuries, right? Because you had to find the 6 colored stones to put in the pedestals in front to move the big door to get into the the Cave of Wonders. And somehow every torch in the cave is lit. Have these torches been lit for centuries? Or has someone been in this cave? And the thing where people in the town say one thing and they have a predetermined path that they walk around, like they're there specifically for your benefit. And that's just the way games work, right? Especially some of the older classic RPGs. I've been thinking about how interesting it might be for a game to be almost like an RPG management sim, where the artifice is actually the point. You play the manager of almost a Truman Show kind of thing. Like, or Cabin in the Woods, where you're the shadowy organization that's manipulating events to make sure the chosen one goes on the quest so that the big evil is defeated because this is just the way it's done kind of thing. So you have to hire the people who walk around, and you have to pick their paths so that the hero will run into them, and write their scripts so that they say the right thing. And you have to go into the dungeons and light all the torches, and maybe you have to go kidnap monsters and stuff them into the dungeon so that they're there. And you have to put treasure chests full of loot in the cave. You know, that kind of thing where you play the person who's constructing this hero's journey, which kind of explains the artifice of the RPG in the first place. I don't know if that would work, but it's something that I've been kicking around my brain for the last couple of days. I don't know what. I think I was thinking about playing Dragon Quest XI, which I just haven't got to yet. Um, might be an interesting idea for a game. Might be a terrible idea. Might not work at all, but could be fun. So it is a couple minutes after 6. I'm going to cut this short. Well, we're 10 minutes over, so I guess I'm not cutting it short. But 'tis the end of the podcast, because it's my friend Nahid's birthday, and I'm going to take her out for sushi. And that's very nice of me, but I can't say it's like completely thoughtful or gregarious or anything, because I really like sushi. So I mean, one, it's nice, and two, it's kind of an excuse to go out and eat sushi. So, my God complex is showing, says Jordan. Yes. Interestingly, though, I don't generally care for sim games. Just not my thing. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Hey, everyone, thanks for dropping by and keeping me company. We should be back to the regular time next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so hope to see you then. Take care, everyone. Oh, wait, Andrew Eisen, Eisen, YouTube. Tomorrow I have a Andrew Eats video. And follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen, where you can watch me complain about and shame YouTube repeatedly for not demonetizing, but well, de facto demonetizing, flagging my videos as inappropriate for advertisements, all of them, and then reversing course when they manually review the video and go, oh, a video where you eat a fruit and talk about it is not against any of our advertising guidelines. our algorithm screwed up again, just as it's done on every single one of your videos. How embarrassing. Anyway, I do that on Twitter a lot, and I complain about movie studios who release movie trailers with clips of the trailer in front of the trailer that I'm already watching. And I also make a lot of dumb jokes, so follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen. Okay, that's enough for me. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.